sample.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Good afternoon. In fact, my friend, she could not come, and Petersen, and I'm talking about the influence of the abstinence period on human sperm quality. This study was a large study in where we studied a total of 458 semen samples. This study was done in our clinic, which is located in a city called Ribeirão Preto in São Paulo State in Brazil. In fact, this study is a consequence of a male factor research project that we are doing since 2006. And during these 10 years, all the patients that arrive in the clinic, we ask them to go to the two procedures, laboratory procedures. First, to check the conventional sperm parameters using who analyzes except morphology that we do mesomy. And also we ask them to have the analysis of the cytochemical sperm parameters. And for this, we evaluated DNA fragmentation, chromatin packing, mitochondrial membrane potential, and also apoptosis. Just to give an introduction, we know that a long period of storage and accumulation of the sperm in the caudal epididymal may expose it to a harmful seminal microenvironment, increase damage associated with stress, oxidative stress, or even to release enzymes by the degenerating spermatozoa with rupture of this of their membranes. So the time that they stay in the epididymal trance can go from 2 to 11 days, and there is a negative effect of how long we keep this spermatozoid inside the epididymis and how is the quality after this. So what we have seen in literature, there are a variety of studies that have demonstrated decline in sperm quality after a large sexual abstinence period. There are mixed reports in literature suggesting a significant positive association between DNA fragmentation, DNA damage, and abstinence period. However, there is a lack of consensus on the exact influence of the abstinence period on both parameters, basic and the biochemistry ones. In view of this, the objective of our study was to evaluate this large population, the influence of abstinence period on both conventional and cytochemic sperm parameters. For this, we analyzed 2,058 semen samples from men whose mean age was almost 38 years old, and patients, as I said before, that come for infertility investigation. We divide these patients in 3 groups according to the period of sexual abstinence. For the first group was those that has less than 2 days of abstinence. And intermediate group, we have those patients between 2 and 5 days of abstinence. And the third group, one of those patients that has more than 5 days of abstinence. What we did, we took 1 ml of fresh sample and we washed it with PBS and concentrated it for 1 million, and then we do the cytochemical analysis. We do we analyze immotile sperms for DNA fragmentation, chromatin packed apoptosis, and motile sperm for mitochondrial damage. We did at least 200 spermatozoa were evaluated for each test. So for the conventional sperm parameters, we did the conventional one by WHO. It is volume, concentration, motility, vitality, and the count of leukocytes. And for morphology, we do mesomy in our clinic, and where we evaluated the morphology at high magnification, more than 8,000 amplification. This is the equipment that we use in the clinic. And we separated two kinds of spermatozoa. We evaluated those that has normal morphology, normal nucleus. That means those spermatozoa that present this kind of image. They don't have a vacuolus or has very small vacuolus with less than 4% of the nuclear area. And also we evaluate the large one, the extreme one, large nuclear vacuolus like this one, and who presented more than one vacuolus occupying more than 50% of the nuclear area. This is a little bit modified way of Bartov has described for the first time in 2002 about semen. So for DNA fragmentation, we analyze using tuned method. And here we are showing how it looks like the fragmented DNA, and here not fragmented DNA. For chromatin packing, what we did, we use chromatin A3 test. And for this, it is a stain that can go inside to the spermatozoa. And if it goes inside to the spermatozoa, in the nucleus of the spermatozoa, it means abnormal chromatin packaging. It's not well compacted, the DNA. So showing abnormal packaging of the chromatin, as I said. And for mitochondrial damage, we use green test, MitoTrack. And for this test, we analyze the activity of the mitochondria in mid-pace. And when we use live sperm, as I said before, and when it goes into the mitochondria, we can see that there is activation of the mitochondria positive. And the last evaluation was apoptosis, and we use an Exina 5 test. And here also an image how the apoptotic spermatozoa looks like, and here not apoptotic one. And here are our results. Here is a table where analyze sexual abstinence, the correlation, sperm correlation and logistic regression of the time period of abstinence, and characteristics of the population. The characteristics that we evaluated was age and body mass index, time of infertility, and some lifestyle like tobacco use, alcohol use, vitamin use, and varicocele. And for all of these characteristics, we didn't see any positive correlation. Just to clarify the data that I'm talking about, here, when we increase the period of abstinence, there is no difference in all of these characteristic parameters. For example, here in tobacco is the same, 10% is not different. If the man has less than 2 days of abstinence or more than 5 days of abstinence. Also, there is no variation in the other ones. In respect of the abstinence, sexual abstinence period, and the conventional sperm parameters, here is the correlation between both, the sperm correlation, and what we saw, most of the parameters, they show positive correlation, volume, concentration, and leukocyte. That means that with the increase of the abstinence, increase these parameters. And in inverse, we saw a decrease of motility and vitality with the increase of abstinence. And here also to clarify these data, here if you see the volume, there is an increase of the volume with more time of abstinence days. Also an increase of concentration from 60 to 92 millions per ml. And also an increase of leukocytes if you have more abstinence days. And a decrease of motility from 65% of motility to 60%. And also progressive motility, it declines with the more abstinence time. Also vitality, it declines, is an inverse correlation, as I said before. In respect of the cytochemical sperm parameters and correlation with abstinence, we also saw correlation. We saw positive correlation with DNA fragmentation and mitochondrial damage. We didn't see any correlation with apoptosis. And we saw a correlation also, a negative one, with chromatin packing. Again, to clarify the results for you, here are the data. You see DNA fragmentation in less than 2 days of abstinence, it showed 40%, and it increased with more days of abstinence to 70%. The damage of the mitochondria was higher in higher days of abstinence. But apoptosis, as I told you, I didn't see any difference. And in respect of chromatin, what we see here, there is a better chromatin compactation with the time of the abstinence days. This is quite difficult to explain and to understand this, because we know that chromatin packing is an early step to have a DNA fragmentation. And here we have a positive DNA fragmentation with more time in the abstinence days. And then what we can see here, that mitochondria and also leukocytes, because we have an increase of mitochondrial damage and also an increase of leukocyte. What we can see that both together, they increase the reactive oxygen space and then can have the DNA fragmentation. And to explain why we have better chromatin compactation with more day of abstinence, maybe what we can think about is that because of this leukocyte, we can have an unbalanced redox system, and it can reduce the bond, the percentage of the bond dysfix, difficulty, the fixation of protamination, and also the fixation of this stand that we use it in this method that show no better fixation in more abstinence days. In conclusion, sexual abstinence increases sperm volume, sperm concentration, leukocytes, DNA fragmentation, mitochondrial damage, and sperm protamination, and decrease sperm motility and vitality. The increase of chromatin pack with abstinence period could be a pitfall of this method that we have used. And we think that sexual abstinence over 5 days is not recommended for the patients for ARCH. Thank you all for your attention, and all the clinic for doing this paper. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 1 minute for questions. Any question from the audience?
Thank you very much. Very nice topic. Just want to look, I'm sorry for that, just want a bit of practicality in real life. When you say less than 2 days, you mean 1 day. If I'm going to do this, my egg collection on Monday morning, it means when you say less than 2 days, how soon can that be? That means that they have, it's less than 24 hours.
That means that the patients arrive and they said that they have sex with their...
The night before?
Yes.
And that's showing better results, at least from motility point of view. Is that what you're saying?
No, sorry?
From motility and normal forms point of view, if you say that it's less than 2 days, which means that it's, let's say, 24 hours, it gives better results regarding motility and normal forms. Is that what you're saying?
No, I said that better...
Motility and morphology.
Yes, motility and morphology.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, Yes,
So-
but
so-
with less.
No, forget about numbers, but you're talking about morphology and motility. They should have intercourse the night before.
Morphology, I didn't see difference, but progressive motility I saw.
So we move to the last question. Thank you.
Bahadur, UK. It's a very important study that you're performing, and congratulations.
Thank you.
We published recently on consecutive ejaculations, and we showed very marked differences between what we call ordinary WHO standard abstinence and half-an-hour abstinence from the same patient. And there were quite astonishing differences there. There's another study that is coming from Sweden, from Hiva Alipur, and he's also showing some astonishingly positive changes with very short abstinence. So I think your study is quite important because it adds to what we know now. And we ourselves have been applying consecutive ejaculations in intrauterine insemination program, and we have boosted our pregnancies quite astonishingly. It's quite important because when we look at the abstinence times, they've been derived from men who are healthy with proven fertility. We know very little actually about what happens in our men in a subfertile relationship. What is the optimal abstinence?
Thank you.
Yes,
Do you want to comment on this?
I agree with him. If you have less abstinence, even if in the same day, as he said, he had better results, maybe in the literature they say that better pregnancy with less abstinence time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for a nice presentation.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank my co-chair. I thank to everybody to